I'll get that. Hello, Fred. Hello, Woody. Goodbye, Woody.
What changes has this hit TV series made in your life?
Not too many, other than the fact that I sleep at night now instead of sleeping in the day as I did when I was working at a nightclub.
What actually happened? I was working in a nightclub in Los Angeles, and Aaron Rubin, the producer, he happened to be in the club that night.
What if I told you that one single line in a courtroom scene helped bring down one of America's most beloved comedy shows? Picture this. It's 1977, and millions of families are gathered around their TV sets every Friday night, laughing at the hilarious adventures of Fred and Lamont Sanford. But behind all those laughs, something was brewing that would change everything forever. Today, we're going to uncover the shocking truth about the controversial moment that many believe helped seal the fate of Sanford and Son. This isn't just about one offensive line or one bad decision. This is the story of how a groundbreaking show that changed television forever slowly fell apart from the inside, leaving fans heartbroken and wondering what could have been. Before we dive into that infamous scene, let me take you back to where it all began. January 14th, 1972, was a cold winter night when something magical happened on American television. NBC premiered a little show called Sanford and Son, and nobody could have predicted the cultural earthquake that was about to hit. The show was actually based on a British comedy called Steptoe and Son, but NBC wasn't sure if American audiences would connect with it. In fact, they were so unsure about having predominantly black cast that they originally planned to make the main characters two Italian men. Can you imagine? They even tested the show with Italian actors Paul Sorvino and Barney Hughes, but it just didn't work. Thank goodness NBC finally decided to trust the original vision, because what happened next was pure television gold. The story centered around Fred Sanford, a grumpy but lovable junk dealer living in Watts, Los Angeles, with his sensible son Lamont. Fred was always cooking up crazy get-rich-quick schemes, while Lamont tried desperately to keep his father's wild ideas from getting them into trouble. Their constant bickering, name-calling, and hilarious arguments became the heart of the show that America fell in love with. But here's what made Sanford and Son truly special. This wasn't just another sitcom trying to get some laughs. This was a show that dared to put a black family at the center of American television during a time when that was revolutionary. Most shows on TV feature white families, and the few that included black characters often portrayed them as stereotypes or side characters. Sanford and Son changed all of that. The show was an instant hit. By its very first season, it was already ranking in the top 10 most watched shows in America. At one point, it was so popular that it actually knocked the beloved Brady Bunch off the air. Can you believe that? The Sanford family was beating the Brady family in the ratings war, and America couldn't get enough of Fred's fake heart attacks and his famous catchphrase, "I'm coming, Elizabeth." The theme song, called The Street Beater, was created by none other than Quincy Jones. Even though it never made it to the music charts as a hit single, it became one of the most recognizable TV theme songs of all time. You probably heard it referenced in other shows like Scrubs or The Simpsons, and it's still stuck in people's heads today, almost 50 years later. But what really made the show work wasn't just the comedy. It was the heart. Despite all their fighting and name-calling, Fred and Lamont genuinely loved each other. They were family, and that bond came through in every episode. Fred might call Lamont dummy, and Lamont might fire back with old fool, but when push came to shove, they always had each other's backs. The supporting cast was just as memorable. There was Aunt Esther, Fred's Bible-toting sister-in-law, who could swing her purse like a weapon and trade insults with the best of them. Fred would call her names like Gorilla or Esther Kong, and she'd come right back at him calling him an old heathen. Their battles were legendary. Then there was Grady, Fred's cheerful friend with his famous saying, "Good googly goo," and Bubba, who was always ready to join in on Fred's latest scheme. There was also Julio, the friendly neighbor who Fred would tease but secretly respected, and Donna, Fred's patient girlfriend who somehow put up with all his craziness. The show reached its peak during the 1972 to 1974 seasons, when it became the second most watched show in America, right behind All in the Family. It was so successful that it helped NBC dominate Friday nights completely. Shows like Chico and the Man, which came on right after Sanford and Son, also became hits partly because of the huge audience that Fred and Lamont brought to the network. But as popular as the show was with audiences, things behind the scenes were getting complicated. The main problem was money, and specifically, how much Red Fox felt he deserved for making NBC millions of dollars every week. During the 1973 to 1974 season, something shocking happened that nobody saw coming. Red Fox, the heart and soul of the show, simply walked off the set and refused to come back. At first, he said it was because of health problems, but everyone knew the real reason. It was all about the money. Fox was making $19,000 per episode, which sounded like a lot, but he knew that NBC was making millions from the show's success. He wanted a piece of that action. Specifically, he demanded 25% of the show's profits. The producers at Tandem Productions were not happy about this at all, and they actually sued him for $10 million. Can you imagine the chaos this caused? Here was the star of one of the most popular shows on television, and he was nowhere to be found. NBC had to figure out how to make episodes without their main character. They tried to work around it by focusing more on Lamont and the other characters, but everyone knew it wasn't the same without Fred Sanford's larger-than-life personality. The standoff lasted for months, and fans were wondering if they'd ever see their beloved Fred Sanford again. Finally, in June 1974, they worked out a deal. Fox got his raise to $25,000 per episode, which was the same amount that Carol O'Connor was making for All in the Family. He also got the 25% of profits that he had demanded. NBC was so excited to have him back that they made his return the big season premiere event, even though they had already filmed several episodes without him. But the damage was already done. The relationship between Fox and the network was strained, and it would never fully recover. There were rumors that the fight wasn't just about money either. Some people said that Fox was also upset about his dressing room not having a window, which might seem like a small thing, but was really about respect and how the network treated their biggest star. Despite getting his raise and his profit sharing, Fox wasn't completely happy. The show continued for a few more seasons, but you could sense that something had changed. The magic was still there on screen, but behind the scenes, tensions were building. Then came the moment that many people believe was the beginning of the end for Sanford and Son. It happened during a courtroom scene where Lamont was fighting a speeding ticket, and Fred stood up to represent him in court. Looking around at all the black people who were there for their own legal troubles, Fred made a comment that would haunt the show forever. He said, "There's enough in here to make a Tarzan movie." But here's the thing that made it so shocking and offensive. He didn't say people. He used a racial slur that we can't even repeat today. Even though Sanford and Son was known for pushing boundaries and tackling tough topics with humor, this line went way too far. The reaction was immediate and intense. Viewers were outraged. This wasn't just a joke that fell flat or a comment that was in poor taste. This was the main character of a show that was supposed to represent the black community, using a word that had been used to dehumanize black people for centuries. The irony was devastating. Here was a show that had broken barriers and given black actors and stories a prominent place on television, and now its main character was using language that many people found deeply hurtful and offensive. What made it even worse was that this wasn't some ad-libbed moment that slipped through by accident. This was written into the script, approved by the producers, and broadcast to millions of viewers across America. It showed just how far the show was willing to push the envelope, even when it meant crossing lines that probably shouldn't have been crossed. The controversy sparked heated debates about what was acceptable in comedy. Some people defended it, saying that Fred Sanford was playing character and that the show had always dealt with difficult topics through humor. They argued that the line was meant to show Fred's flaws and ignorance, not to promote racist ideas. But many others felt betrayed. They had supported this show because it represented them and their families on television in a positive way. To hear the main character use such offensive language felt like a slap in the face. It was as if the show was making fun of the very community it was supposed to represent. The incident divided fans and critics alike. Some television historians believe this moment marked the beginning of the show's decline. While it wasn't the only reason Sanford and Son eventually went off the air, it certainly damaged the show's reputation and made some viewers question whether they want to keep supporting it. But the problems didn't stop there. By 1977, the show's ratings were starting to slip. Television audiences were changing, and new shows were competing for their attention. At the same time, Red Fox was getting offers from other networks who wanted to capitalize on his fame and talent. ABC came calling with an attractive offer. They wanted Fox to host his own variety show called The Red Fox Comedy Hour. It was a chance for him to step out from behind the character of Fred Sanford and show off his talents as a comedian and entertainer. After years of playing the same character and dealing with behind-the-scenes drama at NBC, the offer was too tempting to refuse. When Fox announced he was leaving Sanford and Son, it was the final nail in the coffin. NBC tried to convince Damon Wilson to continue the show without his TV father, but Wilson knew it wouldn't work. The chemistry between Fred and Lamont was what made the show special. Without that dynamic, it would just be another sitcom. So on March 25, 1977, after 6 successful seasons and 136 episodes, Sanford and Son aired its final episode. The show that had once been the second most popular program on television was gone, leaving behind a complicated legacy. NBC tried to keep the magic alive with spin-offs. There was Sanford Arms, which focused on supporting characters and ran briefly in 1977. Whitman Mayo, who played Grady, even got his own short-lived show called Grady in 1975. Later, Red Fox tried to revive the concept with a new series called Sanford in 1980, but without Damon Wilson as Lamont, it just wasn't the same. None of these attempts succeeded, proving that the original combination of Fred and Lamont was irreplaceable. The end of Sanford and Son left fans with mixed feelings. On one hand, they were grateful for the 6 years of laughter and the groundbreaking representation the show had provided. On the other hand, they couldn't help but wonder what might have been if the behind-the-scenes drama and controversial moments hadn't gotten in the way. Looking back now, it's clear that Sanford and Son was a victim of its own success and the pressures that came with it. The show had achieved something remarkable by putting a black family at the center of American television and making audiences fall in love with them. But with that success came expectations, money disputes, and the constant pressure to push boundaries and stay relevant. The controversial courtroom scene wasn't a single moment that killed Sanford and Son, but it was a symptom of the larger problems the show was facing. It showed how the desire to be edgy and provocative could sometimes go too far, alienating the very audience the show was trying to entertain and represent. Despite its controversial ending, Sanford and Son's impact on television cannot be denied. The show paved the way for other successful black sitcoms and proved that audiences were hungry for diverse stories and characters. It showed that comedy could be a powerful tool for breaking down barriers and bringing people together, even when it sometimes stumbled along the way. The cast members went on to have varied careers after the show ended. Damon Wilson wrote books about his experiences and continued acting in smaller roles. Red Fox continued performing until his death in 1991, when he ironically suffered a real heart attack while filming The Royal Family. His co-stars initially thought he was doing one of Fred Sanford's fake heart attacks, but they quickly realized it was tragically real. LaWanda Page, who played the unforgettable Aunt Esther, continued acting in films and television until her death in 2002. The other supporting cast members found varying degrees of success in their post-Sanford careers, but none would ever be part of something quite as culturally significant again. Today, Sanford and Son is remembered as a classic that changed television forever. In 2007, Time magazine included it on their list of the 100 best TV shows of all time, cementing its place in entertainment history. The show's influence can be seen in countless sitcoms that followed, and its themes of family, community, and perseverance continue to resonate with audiences. But the story of Sanford and Son also serves as a reminder of how quickly success can turn sour when egos, money, and poor decisions get in the way. It shows us that even the most beloved shows are vulnerable to the very human flaws of the people who create them. The infamous courtroom scene might have been just one moment in the show's long run, but it represented something larger about the challenges of creating groundbreaking television. When you're trying to push boundaries and tackle difficult subjects, there's always a risk of going too far. Sometimes that risk pays off and creates memorable, important television. Other times, it backfires and leaves everyone wondering what went wrong. As we remember Sanford and Son today, we can appreciate both its groundbreaking achievements and learn from its mistakes. The show gave us unforgettable characters, countless laughs, and important representation during a time when it was desperately needed. But it also showed us that success comes with responsibility, and that the power to influence millions of viewers should never be taken lightly. The junkyard may be closed, and Fred and Lamont's adventures may be over, but their impact on television and American culture lives on. They prove that families come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, and that love and laughter can overcome even the biggest obstacles. Even when everything else falls apart, that's a legacy worth remembering. If this deep dive into the rise and fall of Sanford and Son opened your eyes to the complex world of classic television, make sure to hit that like button, and let me know in the comments what other classic shows you'd like me to explore. There are so many untold stories behind our favorite programs, and I'm here to uncover them all. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode of television history that will change how you see your favorite shows forever. Until next time, keep watching and keep wondering about the stories behind the stories that shaped our culture.